It was certainly in their best interest to, to promise these things. It definitely courted a lot of favor from those in the West. However, it would certainly be in their best interest to do all they can to try to follow through on those promises.
All right, Ryan, let's talk about the top 10. Let's zero in on those where we see the persecution being the most intense.
Yeah, so top of the list this year, once again, the country of North Korea. That's a place that they have occupied on this list for most of the years this list has been in existence. Just to contextualize what life looks like for believers in North Korea, this is a country where individuals, simply for being found in possession of the Bible, being found in possession of the Word of God, you and your entire family can be arrested and sent to, the hard work camps for the rest of your life. It's the equivalent of a death sentence. Christianity is seen as opposition, seen as inherently seditious, and is seen as a threat to power for the state there. So North Korea continuing to take that top spot. Another country on the list that you made reference to just a moment ago that has certainly been grabbing a lot of headlines is Nigeria. And that is a country that in many ways I think serves as kind of been an epicenter of some of the violence, and in many ways has served as kind of foreshadowing perhaps a lot of the trends that we're seeing throughout the sub-Saharan portions of the continent there. And that is just this incredible spike in violence as Islamic extremists looking to exploit opportunity to step into vacuums of power and really seek to drive an ideology that this says Christians are infidels and do not belong in the land.
What are some of the positive? We just have about a minute left, Ryan. What are some of the positive developments you found?
Yeah, I think Bangladesh would certainly be one. That is one where there was a transition here in power, and again, there were overtures that were made that the desire to see religious freedoms, and by and large, there was a corresponding drop in violence and extremist activity that occurred. Now that they have elections coming up about a month from now in February, and so we will see if those overtures that they have made and some of the progress that's been made, whether that continues or whether others start to drive agendas to court political favor in different camps.
Ryan, just about 20 seconds left. How can folks find out more about Open Doors?
Yeah, I think the World Watch List is a great place to start. If you go to opendoorsus.org, you can download the list. It's an informational resource, but more than that, it's a prayer resource because there are specific prayer points for each country there that have been provided by the believers in those countries.
Ryan Brown, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate the work that you do. And folks, I would encourage you to be praying for those Christians.
Jesus said in John 15, "These things I've spoken to you, that my joy may remain in you, and that your joy may be full." In 2024, in these divided and uncertain times, how can this be possible? By abiding in Him through His Word. At Family Research Council, we want to help you do that, which is the reason for the Stand on the Word Bible reading plan. In just 10 to 15 minutes each day, you will have read the entire Bible in just 2 years. But more importantly, you will be abiding in Him daily. Find our Bible reading plan at frc.org/Bible and join Tony Perkins each weekday for a 10-minute devotional inspired by the daily reading and designed to encourage you on this journey through the Bible. Listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And remember, the grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of our God will stand forever.
If we lose this cultural war, we're going to have a hedonistic, humanistic society.
Discover the story of the culture warrior Don Wildman and how he went head-to-head with Hollywood, Playboy, the homosexual agenda, and the Disney empire. The movement Don started paved the way for Christians to boldly stand for truth and righteousness in a hostile culture. Watch Culture Warrior today for free. Visit culturewarrior.movie.
America is about to celebrate her 250th birthday. In the beginning of our country, almost all American children were raised with a Christian worldview. That has drastically changed over the last 250 years. What's your opinion on what we can do to restore it? Your thoughts and your support will help us fight for our kids, and we'll give you the DVD Educated for Liberty with Stephen McDowell as our thanks. Visit afa.net/educate today. afa.net/educate.
The heartbeat of a baby in the womb, heard through ultrasound, is one of the most beautiful sounds you can hear. But abortion stops that heartbeat before a baby is ever born. Preborn saves the lives of babies by letting a pregnant mother see their baby and hear the heartbeat with a free ultrasound.
My name is Mary. I'm calling from Tennessee. Recently, I have a granddaughter who will be 2, and her mom connected with Preborn.
When a mother hears the heartbeat on ultrasound, her baby's chance for life dramatically improves. Through the years, Preborn has saved the lives of 400,000 babies. And beyond that, thousands of young mothers have found salvation in Jesus. You can help with a donation to Preborn. January 19th through 23rd will be Preborn Week on AFR. Our goal is to raise support for 5,000 free ultrasounds. Be listening and help support Preborn. Your love can save a life.
Each week.
Welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks so much for tuning in and making us part of your day. The website is TonyPerkins.com. Also available to you is the Stand Firm app. And on the Stand Firm app, not only do you have access to Washington Watch, no matter where you go in the world, even in Iran. We actually have viewers in Iran. You also, when they don't block out the internet, also you can get the Washington Stand news and commentary from a biblical perspective and my daily devotional, Stand on the Word. And speaking of that, our word for today comes from Genesis chapter 32. So Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that were with him and the flocks and the herds and the camels into 2 companies. So left alone, he encounters God, and a wrestling match ensues. Then Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. Now when he saw that he did not prevail against him, he touched the socket of his hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip was out of joint, and he wrestled with him. And he said, "Let me go, for the day breaks." But he said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So here's what's happening. Facing Esau, Jacob is driven by fear and desperation, yet also by resolve. This was not just a contest of strength, but a moment of surrender marked by persistence. Jacob refuses to let go until he receives a blessing. And that night changed him. God gave him a new name, Israel, meaning one who struggles or persists with God. Persistent prayer does the same for us. It transforms our character and our identity. To find out more about our journey through the Bible, text Bible to 67742. That's Bible to 67742. All right, as I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the week, January is the Sanctity of Human Life Month, and there has been a lot of renewed attention on the life issue here in Washington, starting with President Trump's comments last week on the Hyde Amendment, saying we need to be a little flexible. Republicans need to take up yoga so they can be flexible on this issue. Well, today the Senate committee had a hearing on the abortion drug, and following that a press conference that the Family Research Council organized. With me now are the managing editor for the broadcast, Casey Harper, and editorial director and senior writer for the Washington Stand, Suzanne Bowdy. Casey, Suzanne, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Tony.
All right, you guys flexible?
Very.
Okay, can we talk about whatever? All right, in fact, let me just start with that President Trump's clip. Number 5, play that, please.
Now, you have to be a little flexible on Hyde. You know that. You got to be a little flexible. You got to work something. You got to use ingenuity. You got to work. We're all big fans of everything, but you got to be flexible. You have to have flexibility.
You know, I've been around the president a lot, and you can tell he that was not normal. And this call for, I think he was uncomfortable when that group calling them to be flexible on Hyde when the Republican Party has staked out this territory for nearly 50 years.
He sounded uncomfortable, and he should. And honestly, I mean, you've talked about this on the show so much this week that, he's not a career politician. He doesn't understand the Republican Party and its history on abortion. And I will say, despite all the heartburn he's caused and how distressing that comment is, I actually think it has served an important purpose, which is that it has rallied Republicans together on an issue that we've seen mixed messages and hesitance from the Republican Party since Dobbs. And now they are all coming together to say, look, this is a red line for us. We will not cross it. And in some ways, I think it's a silver lining that he's done Republicans a favor, because now all of them are galvanized. You're seeing from Mike Johnson on down to just regular rank and file Republicans saying, we won't stand for this. And you're seeing the result in the White House. There are reports out this week that they're rethinking this. Some White House insiders have told the Daily Signal that they're looking for ways to walk this back. And that is because of the pressure from the Republican Party.
I think in large part this goes back. Number one, you have a president who thinks everything is negotiable. I mean, you can, whatever it is, you can negotiate about it. There's certain things that just are non-negotiable. Secondly, I think this is what happens when you have a party that is not tethered to a platform.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a conversation I've had with the speaker and others this week. We have to fundamentally declare that whoever the candidates are coming up in the next presidential election, before we have a conversation with them, that they agree that we're going to go back to a platform that states the party priorities, and it includes the sanctity of human life.
Right, I think we're going to have an opportunity for that, because we're just a few years out from a post-Trump America. We've been embroiled in the Trump era since 2015 when he came down that golden escalator, and I don't think we even really know what it's going to look like. But we have people like Vance or Rubio, others, rising to the surface. But whoever comes after Trump is going to set a new precedent, a new tone for what does it look like to be president after him.
Well, I think it's going to be incumbent upon those outside of the candidate circle to define what they want that to look like, because I think this is always the danger that when a party makes a fundamental change, this is the argument we're making over Hyde, if you ever just allow it one time,
it won't be one time.
It won't be one time. And so we have to be very clear that this is not going to happen. We are not going to go down the path of the candidate any longer defining what the party stands for. The party is going to have its own identity, and you're going to have to come into somewhat of alignment. Every candidate's their own candidate, and they have their own platforms and their own priorities. But the party is enduring beyond, one administration to the next, one candidate. The party is not about a candidate. Yes, it's about getting candidates elected, but it's also about attracting people to ideology that has long-term implications for the country.
And remember that the Republican Party was started on a value for life, repealing slavery. I mean, this is a founding principle of the Republican Party.
Right.
And what is a party if there are no guiding principles that are uniting everyone and tethering everyone to the same values? It's not a party anymore.
Right. Well, and you can't have it where the candidate gets the ability to wake up one morning and define what the party is. I'm not going to be a part of something like that.
Right.
And I think this is where, going back to your point, Suzanne, where the president, relatively new to all of this, doesn't fully appreciate, and he doesn't know it, first off, because he wasn't here, but he's not surrounded himself at the highest level of this administration with those who can inform him or speak to this issue. But I don't think he fully understands the Republican Party. The ranks of the party are filled with those who came to the party over these value issues, and that's what their alignment is. It's not to a party, it's not to a politician, but it is to a set of principles.
And this is an 83% issue for Republicans. I mean, if you go back and ask, even Democrats over the long history of the last 50 years and before that have seen the value of keeping taxpayers who find abortion morally unconscionable out of funding it. In no way is that a position that anyone should support on either side. And this used to be bipartisan. The fact that it's not now speaks volumes about the Democratic Party, in my opinion.
Well, we've got one party that wants to force taxpayers into the abortion business. We don't need two.
No.
I want to go to another abortion-related topic. We talked about it with the chair of the HELP committee, Bill Cassidy, earlier in the program. hearing on mifepristone. I want to play one clip from that hearing today. It was Senator Josh Hawley, who was actually also a part of our press conference. Play clip number 6.
Let me just remind you testified to a moment ago. Science and evidence should control, not politics. So, can men get pregnant? You're a doctor.
I agree. Science and evidence should guide medicine.
Science and evidence tell us that men can get pregnant. Biological men, can they get pregnant?
I also think yes/no questions like this are a political tool. And
no, yes/no questions are about the truth, doctor. Let's not make a mockery of this proceeding. This is about science and evidence.
How are we ever going to get to I mean, this is crazy. We have, and this is not the only, I mean, we see this repeatedly now, where you have individuals who cannot even define gender or male and female.
And why would you trust the Democratic Party to know what's good for a woman if they can't define what it is? This completely undermines their credibility on everything from healthcare to abortion. I mean, just 4 years ago, we had Ketanji Brown Jackson say, well, I can't define a woman, I'm not a biologist. This woman was a biologist. She was a medical doctor who studied anatomy and physiology. So honestly, she's done Republicans a favor. The political ads here write themselves. They're in a tough election in the midterms, and Republicans can push play on this and remind Americans how extreme the Democratic Party is.
But the Republicans need voters to show up, and that's why these issues matter. And this was a point we made at the press conference that we organized with Lindsey Graham over mifepristone, the abortion drug. So very quick, I know I've talked about this a lot, but here's the deal. During COVID, and well, actually right after the overturn of Roe v. Wade, the the enactment of Dobbs, you had the Biden administration, remember the whole of government approach to trying to protect abortion, and so they were looking for all these ways they could protect abortion, so they changed the REMS, the protocol over the drug mifepristone, allowing it to be issued without an in-person consultation. They suspended the enforcement of Comstock, which means which prohibited the mailing of abortion pills through the mail. That was done away with during the Biden administration. Trump administration comes in, they get rid of all of the Biden era policies except this. There might be a couple of others, but this is the primary one. They haven't touched it. It's still in place. And so abortion numbers have risen in the country. And those states who the Supreme Court said you have every right to protect the unborn with comprehensive laws in your state, all of those laws are being undermined. That was the point of the press conference. If the political, well, I'm just going to say this, if the president doesn't care about the life issue, he should care about the political aspects of this, because if it suppresses the pro-life turnout in the midterm elections, Republicans lose. All right.
Well, you also made a great point about the president's tourism take. You should fill our listeners in on that.
Well, I mean, it actually came to me in the middle of the press conference. I mean, we had attorneys general there who were saying, look, we're trying to keep these deadly drugs out of our state, allow us to enforce the law. And I thought, well, isn't that what happened in Venezuela? We're blowing up boats that are bringing in deadly drugs into the country. I mean, they're not coming into our states in boats. They're coming in through the U.S. mail. But this is, the president wants to arrest Maduro for sending deadly drugs into our country. What we need, and this is what the Attorney General from Louisiana, Liz Murrill, was asking for, was the ability to the shield laws that California and New York are putting in place that prohibit states like Louisiana, who've indicted those doctors for sending these deadly drugs in. They're being shielded. They're being protected. We need a Maduro law that allows these states to arrest those doctors who have violated the law and have killed innocent children, babies in the womb, and put mothers in the emergency room. If there is a crisis in Venezuela that allows the president to blow up boats, we ought to have something here to keep these abortion drugs from coming into countries, coming into states, killing babies, and putting women in emergency rooms.
Preach.
Plenty. I mean, we're talking thousands, millions of babies long term will be killed by this pill. It's not a small thing.
It's 70% of
fractional.
abortions now
Right.
are coming through the abortion.
And I would also make the point, which Chuck Donovan did on your recent podcast, which is this policy that he has is actually more radical than Biden in that we have now approved a generic, cheaper version of this drug, which will actually explode the access and use of this pill. So it's actually worse than Biden.
And that was approved after the FDA announced that they were doing a review of the safety of this, but they went ahead and they approved
So they're making it easier for women to get and cheaper for women to get under Trump, a supposedly pro-life president.
Yeah, that's why when Hyde came up, a lot of pro-lifers said, all right, enough is enough. We've had delay on revoking mifepristone, then we had a generic, and now we have this. And I think to your earlier point about the political implications, I think a president who himself admits that he may not make it into heaven, who has not been an evangelical in any sense, a New Yorker with a kind of checkered past, how did he get millions of evangelicals to show up in the election and vote for him? It was this issue.
So here's what I think we need to do. I mean, we need to be praying about this. We need to be praying for the president that he makes the right decisions and that those coming around him. I think it would actually be a lot worse if we didn't have the House Speaker and some others who do have the ability to speak to him, but he's walled off a lot of those voices in this administration. So we need to pray for him. We need to pray that he would make the right decisions on this, but we also have to take action. And so, folks, I would encourage you to text the word LIFE to 67742. That's LIFE to 67742 and sign the petition and talk to your members of Congress and let them know that this is an important issue and it's a voting issue. This is one of those issues that you vote on. Now, people say, what are they going to do? Go vote for the other side? No, they're not going to go home.
They'll stay home.
Barack Obama figures out something that only Donald Trump then figured out on the Republican side. Elections in this century are base elections. There's not this mysterious middle of all these voters that are just waiting to decide how to vote. There are some, but they, in large part, are driven by the motivation of the base, either the left or the right. And so base elections, it's motivated to support your candidate and turn out and vote. All right, Suzanne, I ate up all the time. You 30 seconds.
No, you're right.
Are you a woman, Suzanne? Are you sure? Yeah.
Well, apparently I need to have a scientific degree, and even then I won't know. So, yeah. No, you're right. We need to pray, but we also need to thank those people who are standing courageously for life.
Yes.
And there are a lot of them right now who are saying the right things and who are acting on it.
And let them know that.
Yeah.
Email them, call them, talk to them, thank them. The speaker's been doing that. Others have been doing that. Thank them. Casey,
I agree.
Last word.
I agree. Stand firm. I heard once. Stand firm on this somewhere. I can't recall where, but it seems really important.
there's a lot of stands around here. The Washington stand. Stand on the word.
That's right.
And yet we're sitting.
We are.
But I'm standing on the inside.
Amen. Amen.
Casey, Suzanne, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Next time, I'll let you get a word in. All right, folks, I want to encourage you to text the word LIFE to 67742 and sign that petition and pray. Pray for our nation. We need leaders. We need to pray for our leaders, that they will make those right decisions so that God's blessing can come upon our nation. All right, thanks for joining us today. Until next time, I leave you with the encouraging words of the Apostle Paul found in Ephesians 6. Yes, in Ephesians 6, where he says, when you've done everything you can do, when you've prayed, when you've prepared, and when you've sent your petition, and you're taking a stand, guess what? Just keep standing.
Washington Watch with Tony Perkins is brought to you by Family Research Council. To support our efforts to advance faith, family, and freedom, please text GIVE to 67742. That's GIVE to 67742. Portions of the show discussing candidates are brought to you by Family Research Council Action. For more information, please visit TonyPerkins.com.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
90.5 KTXG Greenville, Dallas.
And again and again and again, Bert Harper. The verification of the dates, the verification of the genealogies, it puts spiritual iron in my spiritual blood to know that
we can depend upon the Word of God.
Exploring the Word, weekday afternoons at 3 Central on American Family Radio. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Robert Thornton. President Donald Trump signals a potential off-ramp to U.S. action in Iran. Here's Fox's Jared Halpern with more.
President Trump says he's been told the killings in Iran are stopping amid a violent crackdown on protests across the country.
And there's no plan for executions or executions. So I've been told that in good authority. We'll find out about it.
This week, the president told Iranian protesters help is on its way and warned Iran's regime of very strong action if anti-government protesters are hanged. The Pentagon ordered a drawdown of some U.S. forces in the region. Iran has threatened to strike American bases if the U.S. launches attacks. At the White House, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
A retired Navy officer and military analyst is skeptical about the U.S. taking military action to effect regime change in Iran. More from AFN's Chad Groening.
President Donald Trump has sent a message to the Iranian citizens. Help is on the way. The president canceled talks with the radical Islamic regime amid a government crackdown on protesters who have been taking to the streets in great numbers in various cities around the country. Trump did not offer any details about what the help would entail. Retired Navy Commander Kirk Lippold is skeptical about military action.
I don't think that's really going to be in the cards, even though Trump may try to play it, simply because we do have a number of forces in the region that would become legitimate targets, and I don't think we would be able to totally and effectively counter it.
Lippold says the United States has to create the conditions for the Iranian people to rise up and seize the centers of power.
Seize electric power, seize water power, seize the roads. Start seizing means of communication, television stations, radio stations, internet. Get Starlink running. Those are the kinds of things that will enable the Iranian people to rise up with success.
And as far as who steps in,
we may end up having to rely on the Shah's son to step into the breach. We don't want to go from out of the frying pan into the fire, so to speak. We need to make sure that he is ready, willing, and able to establish and create a government.
I'm Chad Groening.
The State Department said today it will suspend the processing of immigrant visas for citizens of 75 countries whose nationals are deemed likely to require public assistance while living in the U.S. The State Department said it had instructed consular officers to halt immigration visa applications from the countries affected in accordance with a broader order issued in November that tightened rules around potential immigrants who might become public charges in the U.S. President Trump reversed a 15-year-old Obama-era law that mandated fat-free and low-fat milk in public schools. The president signed the Whole Milk and Healthy Kids Act, which would allow schools to offer whole and 2% milk, which he said will be good for both farmers and Americans who drink milk.
This is the first bill signing of the new year. It will ensure that millions of school-aged children have access to high-quality milk as we make America healthy again.
The administration says whole milk has the nutrients needed to keep kids healthy and strong as they grow and learn in school. The Obama-era law was called the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010 and was aimed at lowering obesity rates in children by reducing their access to whole milk because it has more fat and calories than other forms of milk. If you have Verizon for your cell service, you may have noticed issues today. New York City, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Atlanta, Houston, Los Angeles, and Portland are among the metro areas with outage reports. The National Weather Service says conditions will remain below average and chilly for much of the eastern U.S., while the west sees above average and mild temperatures. Morning low temperatures tomorrow and Friday will drop below freezing in northern and central Florida, where freeze warnings are in place for potential damage to crops. On Wall Street, stocks were down today. The Dow lost 42. The